Hey friends, I am so excited for you to meet today's guest, Natalie. In this episode, we talk all about what the fuck happens to your body after pregnancy, during pregnancy, and what you can do even before pregnancy to prepare yourself. And so often when we hear stories about pregnancy, they're very narrow in focus. We have these TV shows that show you a very, very small version of what pregnancy looks like, feels like, and can be experienced as. And what we know more now than ever is that each person has a unique experience. We've heard so much about maternal mortality rates and how oftentimes women who have just had children aren't being listened to or cared for in the way that they need and deserve post pregnancy, post birth. And so Natalie and I talk about the importance of those things. And not only do we hear these things in things like movies and TV, but also they're being legislated by oftentimes by men, not by women who are actually going through the bodily experience of doing this stuff. So I encourage you, if you're listening to this, listen to Natalie share her story, share some experiences and stories of those who she's worked with for so many years. And if you feel so called to share your story as well, please do. I encourage you to go to nikkiannison.com/join the conversation and let us know what you thought. This is one of those episodes that we're talking about something that has been weirdly taboo, even though it is so incredibly common in our civilization for women to be giving birth. I don't even know how many babies are born every day, but I feel like every second someone's being born. And so the fact that we don't have a common cultural understanding of how to care for one another after we have babies and how we as women can step into the strength of our bodies and regaining and rehabbing after the trauma that comes with birth, whether that be through C-section or vaginal birth. I think it's really important for us to create some space for this conversation. So Natalie has been doing this for years, and I'm just so grateful that she came on to talk about this stuff today. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. Natalie, welcome to Checkbox Other. I am so happy you're here. Just so you know already, before we even started recording, I've had chills go through my body like multiple times. So I'm just ready for my body temperature to be all over the place during this conversation. I am so excited. Yeah. So welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm a little bit giddy, so it might get a little bit silly.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. If our faces hurt by the end of this, count that as a success.
My cheeks already hurt. Yeah. I'm smiling.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this is how I start every episode. I pass the mic over to you and let you kind of tell us the twists, turns, aha moments, pivots of your journey. I'd call it the Cliff Notes version of what's gone on in your life that's led you to where you are right now. So I'd love to hear from you about that.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here. And I mean, there's been a lot of twists and turns lately, but I'll start from the beginning. I feel like it all started back when, just in general, life, businesses, and everything else started when I had my kids. I was living on Los Angeles at the time as a dancer, and I became pregnant with twins. And it all kind of just stemmed from that. What I do now kind of stemmed from that. I was on bed rest for 2 months with the twins. I had an emergency C-section. I was a solo mama who now needed to figure out what she was going to do to support herself and her babies. And 19 months later, I ended up having another daughter via C-section. And that's when I found Pilates. And it all kind of started from there. I needed something to support myself financially and my girls. And I also needed something flexible as a job. And I happened to have a friend who bought a Pilates studio, and I started working the front desk. I brought Ava with me when she was born to work the front desk, and then started teaching shortly thereafter. And that was 17 years ago. And since then, I started to focus on post-baby rehabilitation for women, because throughout many years of my teaching experience, I started to hear the same stories over and over and over again from women, from moms. The same types of aches and pains, the same types of birth-related symptoms like stress incontinence and pelvic organ prolapse and C-section. I had 2 C-sections, and what I found is is a major abdominal surgery. It's something I experience as a major abdominal surgery, and yet it's not focused on being said you need rehabilitation for it. There's
Right.
no prescription that you leave the hospital with saying this is major, you need physical rehabilitation. And so I did that for many years. I owned a Pilates studio for about 5, where I worked privately one-on-one with women, and that shut down with COVID. And in that time, I became a flower essence therapist. And because what I discovered is not only did moms need physical rehabilitation, but they also needed some emotional and energetic support. And so I started making these homeopathic tinctures to help women feel more grounded, kind of come back into their body, feel more calm. Because a lot of that, in addition to the physical rehab, the emotional and energetic is certainly less talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. I combined the two methods, the Pilates and the flower essences. And then at one point, I just created this mist I called a calming mist. It was generic labels I made at home, these cobalt blue bottles. And I mixed two oils I love, tangerine and lavender, with the flower essences. And I said, here's your calming mist. I gave it to my clients. And then a client one day said, you should really call this Calm the Fuck Down. And I loved it. And I made it, and I sold a couple of them for the holidays. And that's kind of where I am now, is creating this product business. So once my Pilates studio closed, I thought, oh shit, what now? And then I had these mists, and I came up with 2 more earlier this year. And now I am moving forward with creating this product business, which I know nothing about, because everything I've done for the last 17 years has been in personal services and helping women physically. And this is a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
And I thought I was done with the physical rehab, but I realized this is way too important, still not talked about enough, although it's getting better. And so I'm just still navigating what that looks like in a grander scale. How can I serve more women? How can I get the word out in a broader
Yeah.
scale about the importance of physical rehab after babies at any stage of the game?
Yeah.
It's not just right after you have a baby, 4 or 5 years later, 10 years, it could be 25 years later, because I know a woman who's had a baby 25 years ago definitely did not have the tools
Right.
get the tools to rehabilitate. So yes, so I am in the process of navigating what that looks like, because it's too important not to share. And I feel like my years of experience, I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot, and I like to share that. So I feel like I'm constantly learning and
Yeah.
spewing out information.
Well, and it's so important, I think, especially in topics that are so, I mean, the experience is so common, but the conversation is not welcome, that even just opening up the space, whatever offering you're bringing to the world, for people to be like, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one experiencing this, is such a
Yeah.
powerful thing to do. And obviously having to navigate all the ins and outs of what's happening in the world right now, of just being like, you know what? I am willing to be a sponge to learn what I need to learn to offer this in the way that's, easily digested for people right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ability for you, I just am seeing the dancer in you, I think, is part of it. The ability to be in the flow and to be able to move with what is offered for you is like so incredibly powerful. So the reason we call this Checkbox Other is one of my favorite questions. I would love to hear a time, or if you have more than one time, it's all welcome, where you have felt other or different in your life, and how that has actually impacted your life, the lives of those around you.
Yeah. Wow. I love this question, and I don't, my mascara is either running in my eyes or I'm going to get emotional. So I'm like wiping my eyes already. Which I have to probably should say. Whew, I should say, anytime it's a topic around the girls,
Yeah,
the waterworks come. So excuse me for a second.
it's all welcome. It's all welcome here. You can take a minute if you want to.
Other, I have to say, I go back to the girls, and becoming a mom, I should say, becoming a mom probably was one of the one of several moments where I felt other, and that was just, trying to navigate solo parenting and taking care of the girls and figuring out how to do that. I remember, multiple occasions where, well, let's say I went into the hospital unexpectedly, went on bed rest for 2 months. I was a dancer, but I didn't have any freaking health insurance.
Mm.
So I was about to give birth, and they're like, okay, we need to get your insurance information. I'm like, I don't have any. So then I had to fill out paperwork for insurance, which ended up being the Medi-Cal insurance or state insurance,
Mm.
which just that like whole experience, I think, made me feel other. In that, like, what what is this?
Yeah.
Um and yeah, there was just a feeling around it. And then then there were other moments where I needed support. I needed help with living and food and all of those things. And anytime you have to, for me anyway, good Lord, get it together. Um, for me anyway, going through that experience, there was a feeling of, well, definitely shame and embarrassment, I think, was part of it. So I think with that, just had a moment of other. I mean, if that's the right description for the right
Mm.
definition for it. For me, it was like, I am different from, I don't know, I just guess I felt different from many others who didn't necessarily need that.
Mm.
Um, those are the ones that stand out the most, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think, I guess, in my mind it also, and I don't know where this thought came from, um, being a statistic and that feeling like other,
Yeah.
like this solo mom, this Latina solo mom who's expected to take care of her kids on her own and then need assistance doing it. To me, I don't know where that came from, but that to me made me feel different.
Mm. Well, and I mean, you just mentioned so many pieces in that. I think even the beginning part, when you're talking about the processes that are supposed to be helping and supporting you as your body is going through something that you've never experienced before and having it happen in such an emergency setting.
Yeah.
For it to be, okay, but first you have to get your paperwork right for you to take
Right.
care of my body is discombobulating in its own right. The
Yeah.
experience, the bodily experience for your body, one, and then the body of your two little ones inside you, that
Yeah.
should be where you're able to focus your time, your energy, and just everything you've got to make sure that the three of you are okay. And
Mhm.
instead, what's happening is you're being asked to sign on the dotted line, have all this information, and check all the correct boxes in order
Yeah.
to be qualified to be supported in the thing that is what keeps the human race going. So I can only imagine how it, how that is just set up in such a way that would make anybody, even outside of being pregnant and having two people coming out of you and your hormones working that way,
Right.
like if I walked in with a broken ankle and I'm in distress and you're like, sorry, but first you've got to
What?
pass all these tests and you have to have all this paperwork and where's your membership card before I'm going to take care of the wound that is in front of me.
Mhm.
And that's not life threatening. That's not three people's lives. I can only imagine how, I mean, like, there's so many emotions going through my body just imagining it. The frustration, the anger, the
Yeah.
sadness, the confusion, the please someone help me. Are you not going to help me? If you're not going to help me, what am I going to do?
Right. Yeah. And only more so do I think back on it and become more angry, knowing what I know now, especially working in, you know, in post-baby care and
Yeah.
learning more about the lack of services for minority women and the complications there are for getting the services for minority women and low income women, and just the lack of education for them to be able to advocate for themselves as well.
Yeah.
And so, then I look back and I'm like, God, you just go through it all blindly, and you're just kind of, stumbling around and listening to people tell you how it's done and what to do. And yeah, and because I was considered high risk, and I happened to be in a hospital that was considered to be a learning hospital. I had residents surrounding me
Oh my
daily
goodness.
who looked at me like a monkey in the zoo, and yeah, it was very, very interesting. I have one funny story, funny kind, haha-ish, where after my C-section, which was an emergency C-section because I just kept contracting through this medication that they were giving me, I was in recovery or whatever, and the main resident, he said, "Hey, we are coming in to check on me," and it was still a bunch of them with him, like the group of them. "Hey, we made your incision really low because we knew you were a dancer." And I said, "Okay, what kind of dancer did you think I was?" Which it was very interesting because I just spent 2 months laying in this hospital bed with them coming in every day thinking I was this exotic dancer, now coming in and having, twin babies. It was just very, very interesting, the whole thing.
Well,
So,
and to be making, I mean, the interesting part of that too is you saying 2 months. So hey, we've kind of gotten to know each other, but you've made a whole bunch of assumptions. You never asked me what I needed or wanted.
mhm,
And
mhm,
you made assumptions based on what seems like little to no information. What other
yeah,
things are you making decisions upon? And how can I advocate for myself when I can't move out of this bed right now? So yeah, I can only, I feel like I keep saying I can only imagine, but like it, it feels like a movie and it's not. And it's like, unfortunately, what we're learning more and more is more stories. And especially since I know you've been doing so much work in bringing these stories to the forefront, that the kind of mishandling of this
yeah.
stuff is far more common than we're even told. And so
Oh
it's so
yeah,
important to be talking about it for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, it does. It stirs up this little fire, this anger, and what I was telling you, I wanted to begin my podcast again and get these stories out there. There's things I want to hear people will share with me, because I'm like, let's hear the stupid shit people say to women, in general, and especially to mothers.
Mhm.
And along with that, um, talk about what the fuck happened to your body. That's what the podcast is going to be called, is what the fuck happened to my body. And one of the stories that comes to mind that I feel like, God, how did this happen to her, is, so we hear the story about Serena Williams, who had to
Yeah.
continually advocate for herself and say, "This something's not right. Something's not right." And they would not listen to her. And I'm thinking, if we can't get this person who's very well known, she's got everything, the support that she needs. It just baffles me that people don't listen to women.
And she
And
knows her body better than most of us.
yeah,
Yeah. That
yeah. So
someone else
I would
felt they
really
knew
love to get
better.
her on the podcast to share that. Just to, one, I want to hear her to share that story again, but two, just to say, like, if Serena Williams can't get doctors to fucking listen, think about these women, marginalized women who don't have the resources and care and all the other extras that or just in general, not even the extras, basic fucking support.
Yeah. And people listening to them. I mean,
Yeah.
listening to us, let's say that, because I do think that there is a part of us that if the world has told you again and again that your voice either needs to be silent or very, very quiet and kind and nice and compliant,
Mhm.
it is hard to advocate for yourself when when it's kind of a clean slate, there's no other factors involved. Um, and it's so interesting because even, I don't know why this came up, but in my brain, but one of the things as you were mentioning this is like that women have to stand up and advocate for something that they're not necessarily, because I don't know about you, I did not learn. I feel like I've learned more since my friends have been having children than I learned
Yeah.
in any type of formal education in school or through my doctor about what happens to your body, what you should be paying attention to. Um, and just the kind of level of self advocacy that you need to have in your back pocket when you're
Mhm.
surrounded by experts, when you're surrounded by the people that are supposedly doing this multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And so the fact that one, we're not allowed to talk about it usually, we're not given the information and the knowledge and the education around what's happening to our bodies. And then after everything's over, how we're supposed to feel, if we're supposed to have, when you're talking about rehab, right, that we're not
Mhm.
necessarily even given the level of I don't know, acknowledgement that our bodies actually do need to heal after this, though it is how most people are brought into this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
We forget the part of the person that brought the children into the world. How do we need to take care of that body?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and once the baby leaves the body, we forget all about the body that carried it, and it's all about baby at that point. And you get that 1 6-week checkup after you have the baby, and even at that point, you know, the doctor's like, smack, smack you on the ass. All right, you're good to go.
Yeah,
Go, good luck, best to you. But the yeah, and all of the whole point of all of that is, we have to take care of the moms, because they're raising the kids, they're raising the generations, and not only that, they're trying to run businesses and help in the community and and uh, achieve all these aspirations that they have, which tend to get sidetracked
yeah,
most of the time when the children come and they're expected to do 100% of that, whether they chose to have children on their own anyway. But it's still, they still need the support
for
to
sure.
be able to do all of that, because if you've got, let's say you have urinary incontinence, and every time you laugh, sneeze, cough, or just have a weakness, in the back of your mind you're thinking, oh god, I could leak at any moment, I shouldn't be so far from a bathroom at
Yeah,
any point of the time. I'm now limited in my activities. Maybe there's something the kids want me to do and I can't do it. So now I feel like an asshole because they can't participate in their fun.
mm,
It's all of these things in the back of the head, which then will affect just in general our confidence, our lack, our self-esteem, and just how we, our outer world, everything else that, because everything that we feel and think is basically reflected out, and
yeah.
that's going to affect everything else that we do. And that basically is the whole point of me wanting to shout from the mountaintops in a broader platform. Like, you have got to be able to rehabilitate your body and support yourself physically and emotionally after having
Yeah.
kids.
And it's not, I mean, there's so many aspects of the female body that are seen as open fodder or even open touching, as we've heard for years and years and years, and unfortunately still need to be marching in the streets about. That though your body seems to be the public's ability to make decisions over, when there's something wrong with your body, it's your own individual experience and your own individual shame that you have to walk around with. And you shouldn't be talking about it. However, what you hear when you actually start talking about it is that these conversations about urinary incontinence are common and
Yeah.
are just part of the experience. And especially if we have all of these bodily traumas that happen that we just don't call what they are, we don't heal them in the moments that they need to be healed or even afterwards. We have all these women that are feeling separate from their bodies, or feeling as though their bodies are some sorts of, as you mentioned, I think, vulnerability or weakness, or even, that they're not theirs anymore. And there's so much, just again, we talk about the physical part, which I'm just like, so I've told so many people about the work that you do and the stuff that you offer for women who are really trying to navigate how to get strength and that relationship back with their body. But the mental part of it and the energetic part of it, and just feeling like, how can I kind of bring back what either I used to have, or maybe it's the first time in your life that you're actually allowed to look at your body with a sense of awe and love and a level of compassion, because, as we know, from a very young age, women are seen as objects. And so how do we bring our relationship back together with our body and it doing such a beautiful thing of bringing life into this world at the same time? Okay. Yeah. So I would love to, this is not a conversation that's just being had on this podcast for sure. There is a lot of conversation about how we support families and women specifically as they are going through the birthing journey, and after the little nuggets are in the world, how paid family leave and all different levels of support are being offered in at least in American society. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts, because obviously there are loud arguments being had all over the place about this. And so often it's missing the point. It's just another talking point for fodder, and it's not really centering the human being experience of it all. And obviously you are doing work in this. This is something you are so passionate about. I'd love to hear your take on kind of how we as a society can better support one another in these experiences.
Yes. I know, trying to raise babies on your own after having this huge transition. Go from the get-go, let's say, whether the woman is easily able to become pregnant is one thing. Your body is experiencing a huge transition physically, emotionally, hormonally, which we don't take into account. But let's talk, then there's a woman who's navigated infertility for several years, who I feel has probably experienced so much more physically, emotionally, hormonally, So we're starting from a deficit, I want to say, in all of those areas. And it kind of continues to be sucked out of you, for lack of a better word, because you're growing a human, and a lot of us weren't necessarily prepping probably the right way or a good way before we became pregnant. And so the body is basically just, you're losing a lot of, the brain shrinks, you're losing a lot of your bone density, micronutrients, macronutrients, you're just losing a lot. And hormonally, it's shifting things that you just haven't experienced before. Then it continues after delivery, whether it's a vaginal delivery or a C-section. And that continues as you're nursing, if you decide to nurse, and you're not properly replenishing your body. And so whether you have a woman who's single or married, you've got someone who's like basically coming out of this dark cave going, what the fuck just happened to me? I have this baby now who is reliant on me, but I'm feeling less than, normal. And we need all the care and the services we can get for a parent, for a mom. And it's so important to have a community around you, or people around you, whoever that is, whether it's girlfriends, family, parents, your partner, whoever that is, because there's just so many emotional ups and downs, so many things, women have experienced psychosis after pregnancy. And If you're doing that solo or without support of a partner or a partner who cannot be there for you, I mean, that's beyond traumatic.
Yeah.
If you want this mother to continue to be able to care for her children and be a part of the family, you have to I just keep picturing this, replenishing and support. And we hear about different cultures where everyone just kind of surrounds the woman, and the woman is in certain cultures not allowed to lift a finger for a certain period of time, whether it's a week or a month or whatever. She is served, she's taken care of, the baby's taken care of. And a lot of the time, that barely happens for women. In a less what's the word, I don't know, dramatic scenario, I remember coming home with the twin no coming home with Ava after having had a C-section. So Ava's my third daughter, my second C-section, and the twins happened to go stay with my parents so that I could take care of the baby, but it was just me. And I had a C-section, and I remember sitting on the couch and trying to nurse Ava, and I, needed water. It was like parched beyond anything. And I was like, kind of looking around going, shit, I've got this baby on me. She's trying to nurse, or maybe she was sleeping. I can't get up from the couch very easily because I've just had my whole abdominal wall cut. How am I going to do this? So, if you can that's just a sliver of an idea of how much support we need to have for moms after delivery, and continues on and so on.
Yeah. And that's water. Let's also just acknowledge that's just
or I mean, to take it, or to even take a shower, or to feed myself, or to go to the bathroom. It was the combination of that. I have the baby, she's sleeping, I can't get up, but also I can't get up because I can't feel my abs, and it's hard. It's just, you don't realize I didn't realize how much I used my abdominals until after having C-sections. There was another incident where I remember the doctor saying, don't drive too soon because you had a C-section. And I thought, well, that's strange, why not? And then I did, and slammed on the brakes, and then my whole abdominal wall, like all my abdominals, like gripped, because that's just part of the body that happens to function when we do something like that. And I was like, oh shit, that's why.
That's what you meant.
That's what you meant. I get it now.
I didn't know that was all part of this process. I didn't know it was a chain reaction of my abs. I didn't know that braking was an ab workout. My bad. Yeah.
No, not until later did I learn more about the abdominals and how it's all connected and why it's important.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because we hear about, I do a big sigh before I say it, because women having it all and doing it all and being it all the time, right? And that's not that's not talking about childbirth. That's talking about like every day checking all the boxes of all the identities to be the best version of all of those things all at the same time, have 100% energy for each of those things. And also, when you have gone through an experience where your body is not under your own control, and it is the thing that you have to be able to get up and use, go and function and get yourself water and take care of the basic needs that you have in your life. Even if you do have support, even if you do have people around you, your body is not able to support you in the way that you're used to.
Yeah.
And you're not given any kind of instruction really, other than don't drive, to know exactly how to navigate that until you're already kind of in the midst of it, worrying about so many other people's welfare, worrying about your own welfare, and also navigating, as you're talking about, the element of kind of the mental part of the after process. I mean, I've had many women on here that have talked about postpartum and varying degrees of how that has impacted their lives. And it's something that, again, it's like thrown around, but it's a different experience for every person. So to know that the psychological, emotional side of it, mental side of it is unique like that, the physical side has got to be unique in the same way. And so there is this, of course, social media is wonderful for the fact that there's more information a click away, but also
Mhm.
social media on the other side of it is here's the right way to do things. And the right way might be different for different people. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts about, I mean, I know maybe the mom Google verse is
Yeah.
there's a whole lot out there. And I am so glad, hopefully for those of you that are listening, Natalie is a good person to be paying attention to and hanging out with, all right? So if you're looking for credible sources, here you go. I'd love to hear how you kind of think about and talk about and advise people as they're kind of navigating all of these elements at once, how to handle that. I think of it like the late night scroll, like, okay, I must be the only person awake right now going through this. What has worked for you, your clients, and how do you kind of think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot out there. And what I found, and I'm not just saying, and I say this all the time, and I'm not just saying it because I am a Pilates instructor, but I truly believe that Pilates is the best practice for
Mm,
women post baby. I actually think it's the best practice for anybody because it was born out of physical therapy, which can easily, it's not jarring, it's not heavy weight, it's a form of rehabilitation that kind of works with where you are, helps you to build a deep foundation and progresses from there without
mm,
causing injury. So I am a huge advocate for Pilates for women post baby, and I have to say one-on-one is best to start out with because we really need to start by rebuilding this foundation. So let's say, you know, a lot of women will have their exercise practice that they participated in before birth, and then they had to quit early or, taper off at the end of the pregnancy. It wasn't best suiting them because most likely, and I keep picturing the women in bar with these big bellies throwing their leg up behind them, and I'm like,
mhm.
God, do you know what you're doing to your pelvis? Um, or the runners, which the doctors have given, I've heard doctors give the okay for women to run during pregnancy. Great. However, you're putting a lot more pressure and weight on your pelvic floor, which is not going to serve you after if you don't know how to rehabilitate it, or the CrossFit people. So
Yeah. How about spinning? I say this because I remember I used to spin avidly. And I remember being in spin class and I will never forget. There was a woman that's like, today's my due date. And I was like, should we be next to each other right
oh
now?
my God, oh my
Yeah.
God, you're like, I don't know how to deliver, baby, I am moving.
Yeah. I was like, I'll get my car though. We'll take care of this. I know where the hospital, we'll take care of this if you need it. But should we be here right
Was
now?
she actively trying to go in labor? She's like, I'm here to get this sucker out.
I mean, at that point, she had been, it was really fascinating for me because I'm like, okay, I mean, you're sitting on a bike and I mean, she wasn't doing all the ups, downs, pushing all the
Yeah,
things, but I was fascinated. And I think there is a part of when you had mentioned early on about how your body, what you can do ahead of time, even
yeah,
more so to kind
yeah.
of prepare yourself. It's fascinating how we have, again, this culture of like, you should be able to do everything until the last minute, like you should be able to work, you should be able to CrossFit up until your water breaks, that kind of vibe.
Mhm.
How those types of things, is that messaging helpful? Is it, how,
I mean, it all depends on the person, which, before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and after pregnancy. Because
mm,
you'll get a lot of questions like, should I do this? Is this okay for women to do? And it might be for a certain period. I was in ballet class up until my 7th month. And then after that, I went on bed rest for a few months. So it all just depends, you know. Did the ballet and the activity exacerbate and cause me to go into preterm labor? Who knows?
mm.
Were the twins getting too big and my body was like, wow, you can't handle it, you need to lay down for 2 months? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just, you prepping is key, I think. In the ideal world, we would have a list of things to do before pregnancy, before you become pregnant, and a list of things that you want to be aware of that are possibilities and how
Mm,
to support them. Um, and a list of activities that would help you during and after birth, right? But a lot of us, like my pregnancies were unexpected. They were not planned. I was active, I was young. Um, those probably you kind of worked on my benefit and my
Yeah.
benefit. But in an ideal world, I would have prepped my body um, for them,
Mm.
for that. Going back to Pilates and rehab, in what I did with women was I would always kind of assess. I would take them through some very gentle, simple exercises to
Mm.
see where they are. What are your abs doing at this point? Can we engage the pelvic floor? Can we access those deep lower abdominal muscles? What is the alignment of your pelvis? Um, because these all play a role in what's going to happen over time. If your pelvis is not in alignment, that is going to be another reason for pelvic floor or urinary incontinence. If you are not able to access your deep abdominals, your pelvis is going to be out of alignment. And we got to work the outer hips. So what I do hear a lot of is just do your Kegels, just do your Kegels. The
Yeah.
doctors specifically are always saying, so are you doing your Kegels? And that's not the end all be all. It's deep
Right.
abs, it's butt, it's outer hips, and yes, pelvic floor engagement. And so I would start women off slowly and getting them in proper alignment, seeing what we can access, and then building from there in a progression. Because it's not something that you shouldn't. Well, how should I phrase this? It's ideally you would want to rehabilitate and rebuild your foundation before going back into your regular miles long running routine
Mm.
or your heavy lifting or your jumping exercises, um, because you will exacerbate things that are
Yeah.
potentially already there or could become um, could show up because of these exercises.
Yeah. So, okay. I feel like well, I'm going to ask this question. This is going to be like super basic. Do you feel like most women that come to you know all the kind of anatomy of it all? Like
No.
when you say pelvic floor, is that something everyone's like, oh yeah, cool? Because I will tell you, until I met you and we talked about this, I was
Yes.
like, I mean, I guess it's a thing, and I kind of maybe have heard it somewhere. But how, like, what, like 101 level stuff do people seem to be coming to the table with regard to this stuff?
No, I don't think women know. I mean, women refer to their vulva as their vagina. We don't know the names of our parts. And unless pelvic floor is getting more and more familiar to people, it's kind of a buzzword like, oh, I'm peeing myself, I should strengthen my pelvic floor. And maybe they've
Mm.
heard of Kegels or something they've probably heard or looked up if they have an issue. But most women until they become pregnant probably have never even thought about it or heard about it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love to do is educate women on their muscles and what we're working with. And one of the things I did last year was create these online courses and these self-study online courses. And because I'm such an anatomy nerd and I want every woman to know what's going on with their body, I created a workshop or a PowerPoint presentation and I said, here's the abdominal muscles. Here's what they do. Here's what's affected during pregnancy. Here's your pelvic floor. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like when you have bladder leakage. Here's the outer hips. This is the muscles that we're working when we do this, that, or the other. When we have that picture, we can activate those muscles. Like our
Yeah.
brain connects to those muscles, which is so much more effective when you're trying to strengthen something. Because I always picture the woman on the treadmill just kind of mindlessly watching TV and walking or, doing a certain exercise with not paying attention. But when you connect your brain, your mind to the activity that you're doing, it is so much more effective to the point where people will think Pilates is challenging, but it's also very simple. It's it's so bizarre because we're so trained to think that we have to just beat the shit out of our bodies for it to change
Yeah.
and feel better and to strengthen. And you don't. You
No.
don't. It's just focused, slow-ish movement on specific muscle groups in proper alignment. That's the gist of Pilates anyway.
It's yeah, you're all like I keep having a visual in my head of like what we learn about our anatomy right? And I just keep thinking of Barbie. I keep thinking of like you have these dolls that literally have nothing. Nothing exists. It's all smooth. There's nothing there. Nothing to see here, nothing to worry about, nothing to care about. That's the most universal experience that most people have with the undercarriage of anyone, really. And then we don't get much of an education. I remember being in like middle school and having a little bit of education around this. And I do remember there was like one movie that showed you birth, but that was always like a giggled about type thing. And then it was kind of like, that's it. And then it was all STDs and be afraid of sex and all that stuff.
Right.
But there wasn't much about what your body is made up of and what you do with your body and how it's being impacted now, but also the fact that like you're at 11, 12, learning about how you're giving birth. It's not a really realistic thing at that time. I mean, for some people, I will say, for some people in my high school and middle school, there was pregnancy, but it's still your body is so foreign to you because it hasn't been encouraged for you to even look at it. That it's such an interesting idea that like even now in my mid 30s, still no one's still really talking about the parts of our bodies, and if we are, it's like, oh well, this isn't working or this happened, instead of it being really empowering and strengthening as you're talking about, like. And also the thing about the way you were talking about that is like it sounds like it's extremely effective and efficient the way that you're doing Pilates. And it's very much like, here is the muscle we're working on, and we're going to focus on that. And we're going to put all of our energy into these. You don't have to be a triathlete to do this. You just need to move this one muscle this much. So let's focus on that and watch the progress. I feel like there's so much reward in that process that isn't valued by how much you can exhaust yourself, how much you can make it so your body needs to shut down.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I know it is. Yeah, it is.
So, okay. As I know, one of the things you started off with when you were talking about, and it was again one of the first times when we were talking about what you do, when you were like, Nikki, it's not just right after you have a baby. It's like the forever after you have a baby. Like it's not, oh, I had a baby a month, a year, 2 years ago. It's I had a kid 30 years ago. I still need support. Can you talk a little bit about how especially people that are kind of coming in later in the game, or maybe feel like, oh, well, she's talking about this would have been great if they had this in my day, how this actually can help and support people no matter where they are in their journey. And yes, physically, but also kind of, I know very much that kind of mental, emotional, and energetic piece that you are definitely known for. How does that kind of play into the mix as you've been working with folks?
Yeah, it's funny. I hear that all the time when I meet new people or people hear about what I've done, what I do. They'll say, God, I could have used you when, or I wish I'd known about you when. And so I immediately say, it's never too late to rehabilitate after having kids. Never. Because here is how I picture it. One, let's just say from a hormonal piece. Okay, so you're pregnant, your hormones start to shift, which weakens muscles. So you're pregnant and you've got this hormone shifting and your muscles are weakening, let's say on your pelvic floor. So let's say that's 1 degree of the potential for pelvic floor weakness, which leads to bladder, urinary incontinence and prolapse, organ prolapse. So then your hormones shift again after having the baby, whether it's vaginally or C-section. And yes, you can have pelvic floor weakness if you've had a C-section.
Mm.
Then let's say you are mid 30s, late 30s, early 40s. Your hormones are shifting. I mean, I don't know if you have started to notice this yet, but I started to notice it right around 38-ish. My body was shifting. Things were shifting in my body because of hormones starting to shift. And then they do it again, you know, mid 40s, and then again mid 50s, you know, 50, mid 50s. So every time those hormones shift, it causes the muscles to weaken. And so then let's say you're 50, you didn't rehabilitate after your 2 or 3 kids, and now, oh my God, now I'm having urinary incontinence like crazy, or now my bladder's starting to fall and I'm going to have surgery.
Yeah.
So that's why and it's not their fault, because they were definitely not given any information about rehabilitation. The information was not there. And I find, yeah, like I said, it's women just don't realize what's out there or that they need to do anything about it. And what was I was going on a tangent about that. So that's why I always say, you know, it's never too late, because I'll see women who have 30, 40-year-olds, because maybe now is when they're starting to really experience it. And they're like, oh shit. But we kind of also, at that point, people start to write it off as just age.
Yeah.
It's menopause. And now I'm peeing myself because of menopause. Well, yeah, partially, but we can also backtrack and pinpoint it to your first, second, and third pregnancy, and not having the tools to rehabilitate, and the hormone shifts, and the lack of exercise. And that's the other thing, is like you said, it's not one and done or 10 and done. It's a process, because they're muscles. So you have to continually work them to keep the strength. You can't just stop and be like, I'm fixed, because your muscles will start to, you know, weaken and atrophy, which happened to me. You know, even as a dancer, I was relatively active and strong. And then after spending 2 months on bed rest, my body had completely atrophied. I thought, you know, my butt was like flat. I couldn't walk. I was weak. On top of having a major abdominal surgery, I was just hunched over and trying to move and walk,
and carry 2 little ones, all that too. Yeah.
I had biceps for days though, carrying those 2 car seats hooked on my elbows, coming through like a fucking goalpost, football goalpost. Out of my way, people.
You're like, so that is part of my routine still. That my kids just graduated high school, but I still got this.
And people are like, can I help you? No. If you take one, I'm off balance, I'll fall over.
Just my workout, lay off. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's also so interesting. It's like, there is so much of a feeling of, if I haven't done it, can I start? And I feel like what I'm hearing from you is start where you are and give yourself grace. I think there was a part of when you mentioned of like, you shouldn't be ashamed of any of it because you didn't know before. I mean, I feel like, or it wasn't offered before. There's so much that even if it was offered before, and even if you did know before, those things don't necessarily mean that there's no hope for you. There's no any of that. I think it's the opposite. If anything, you have an opportunity and a chance to take control back of your body if you'd like to. It might not be like everyone else's, but where you are in your journey, you can take that step. And so I have never been pregnant, never had children. I hope in some point in my life that will be part of my journey for sure. But I always think about the fact that like, we can make steps towards the way we want to go. We don't have to be perfect at it to start. We don't have to know our mountaintop to be able to just take that first step. We just allow ourselves the opportunity to be human and work towards something that we want and try our best. And I think there's a part of this that, again, especially as I was talking about like the Google verse of here's how you become a perfect mother, those lists that we were talking about, and like the threshold with which it is to be good mom, bad mom. you're never going to actually qualify to be 100% because those lists are impossible for anybody to hit and nail and do well. And also,
Yeah.
they're not customized to you. So allow
Right.
yourself to be the best version of who you are showing up as. And I think that's so, so, so important. So here is, because and you're talking about the flat butt part, COVID,
Yes.
quarantine. I mean, I don't know, but there are some people that have become like workout amazing. That has not been my life. And I know my body's changed. So many of my friends' bodies have changed because just our environments and our physical environments have changed. Our ability to go and do things have changed. Our fear of others have changed. How has it been for you, and having three young women going through the last 2 years and really more of like all of the dynamics of us kind of bringing our bodies into safe places, to feel strong and capable and able to handle kind of all the things going on from health perspectives, from our social perspectives, from just the ability to operate. And so I bring that up because I think the multi-generational piece is super important too, of like being a teenager in these experiences right now and being like, this is how I'm learning about the world. How has that kind of shown
Yeah.
up in your experience, especially having four women, but I have not met your daughters, but I get a sense they're pretty badass
Yeah.
women over there.
Yeah.
Going through the past couple of years of like all the different aspects of what's been happening.
Yeah. It's been rough, especially in 2020 because the twins were the twins graduated in June of 2020, but because everything shut down that March, they missed out on a lot of all their senior activities. It was a makeshift graduation. There was no graduation trip, and a lot of those things were such a bummer and they weighed heavy on them. And at the time when the world shut down in March, we had already planned on going to visit my dad, who lives a couple hours away. Actually, we were going to visit my mom because we put my mom in a memory care facility in January of 2020, and she
Oh,
was in there
wow.
for several weeks,
Like
or
right
she was
before.
there. She was there for a year actually. But we couldn't see her for several weeks. They wanted us to give her time to acclimate and so on. And so our first time to go see her was that first weekend maybe it was the second time. Anyway, we were making a trip that way to go visit them. And we ended up staying for 3 months because the world shut down, my studio closed, they were no longer going to school in person. We might as well stay with my dad. He's alone. My mom has just been put in a memory facility.
Yeah.
It might be easier, it's safer. And at that point, there were so many unknowns. We were like, oh
Yeah.
my God, we just have to hole up in the wilderness and never see anybody again, which is basically what we did, except for our 3 o'clock afternoon walks. But it took a toll mentally on the girls. They were really having a hard time because we were only 3 hours away, but we were so far away from them seeing their friends, and what they were seeing on social media was their friends not participating necessarily in being as cautious as I guess we were, or maybe we were supposed to be. And they were like, Mom, this is bullshit. Everyone else is just going on with their lives, and here we are holed up in the middle of nowhere. That was a really rough year. It did take a lot out of them, because also they were very athletic. They participated in sports, basically year round, and they worked several days a week. And of course, they went to school, and on all of a sudden, it was just me and my dad, and they were like, "This is so lame."
This is very different socializing than I'm used to.
Yeah, so it was rough. And yeah, it was really rough. So we're still navigating that because my youngest is still in school. She's graduating this year. One of them opted out from taking college classes, and the other one is taking college classes, but she's still taking virtual classes.
Yeah.
No more athletics. Um, and now, and they're back to work, but very little.
Yeah. Which
So it
then,
was,
introduces you to, I'm using air quotes, of adulthood in such a different
yeah,
way of like
they
having
are.
to act on what you've envisioned, but it be completely different than anything you could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they basically entered the workforce very early. Just
Yeah.
lived as adults, and yeah, the real world hit them early. Yeah, it was challenging to navigate them, and we all, they live here. We all live together, and the twins will be 19 next week, and
Happy birthday.
Ava is 17. Yeah, aren't you a November baby?
October,
Oh,
towards the end of
October.
October. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Good fall time babies now. I was actually due. Actually, today's November, right? November 1st. I was due, I think, this week, 36 years ago.
Yeah,
So I showed up a little early.
yeah. Your
I was supposed to be. So you
arrival.
can just feel that I was supposed to be a November baby. And that's the only time I ever showed up early for anything, was when I showed up early for being born.
I love it.
My mom's like, early, it was 36 hours of labor. What's early about that? But yeah. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like, there's a part of this too, that there's such a beautiful gift. I feel myself going back to the beginning when you were talking about other civilizations and cultures really just surrounding one another like a village and having a circle to get through difficult times or challenging times. And it sounds like that's kind of what you created with your family in the midst of this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it felt to me, I'm such a homebody anyway, and a hermit. So for me, it was hard. It was challenging, but I don't think it was as challenging as it was for my girls. They really had a hard time, and I just felt like, we can't go anywhere. My dad's not going anywhere, otherwise he's going to be alone. Um, and yeah, it just, to me, it was like, okay, well, let's just stay here for the next several months until we have to go back in June for your drive-through graduation.
Yeah. Oh,
And I had
well,
been, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and I wasn't going into the studio, so I hadn't stepped foot in my studio in, I
Yeah.
don't know how many months, 5 months, something like that.
Yeah. So I know personally, I've had to pivot my business. You started by talking about how you've had to pivot, especially recently.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to? I think that's, oftentimes we're like, well, this isn't working anymore, but like, what opportunities have really got you excited?
Yeah, I am excited about the new direction. I say new direction, but I'm still talking about the same things, about post baby rehab and the importance of it. The only difference is I'm not doing the one-on-one work anymore. So I immediately shifted everybody to virtual work, which I'd been doing for multiple years since
Yeah.
moving to the Central Coast from Los Angeles. Um, I'm just not doing one-on-one work anymore. I want to lead or guide women and teach them, but also have them give them flexibility to do it on their own, and just be able to speak about it on a broader scale. And I'm excited about this whole navigating this product thing. I don't, like I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. Every day is a learning process. Um, I'm just kind of going with it, and I'm enjoying doing in-person markets. I'm enjoying meeting retailers and selling wholesale. Um, I'm loving people reactions to the product,
Yes.
and just it's stressful, and yet it's fun at the
Well,
same
it's
time.
connecting with human beings at a time where connecting with human beings has been really hard. I don't know if you remember. I'm just trying to, in my brain, compute. I remember, it must have been in like 2016, 2017. No, I meant you 2017. So it must have been 2017. I remember one of my friends had gone through a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
I was like very, very close friend. And I was trying to figure out how to be supportive and how to offer support in a way that's not asking for anything from her, but also not necessarily like Googling, like, what should I be buying? And I remember I bought one of your essences and sent it to her, and like secret sent it to her. I wasn't like, hi, I'm here. And it changed. I mean, she reached out to me and was like, that was the most thoughtful gift, and thoughtful in a way that didn't make me feel, it was like, I never knew about this before. I didn't know that this could help and support me in this moment, in this time where we're not really, again, it's another one of those things that we don't talk about. I mean, thank goodness we're talking about these things more, but still there's a taboo related to it. And so I just want to bring my testimonial of the fact that, like, not only is this important on so many levels that allow us to kind of re-enter and calm the fuck down, but also it brings a level of healing and opportunity for us to realize that there's so many different layers of how we experience this life in this world, and we don't necessarily have to flip a switch and be magically better and be magically healed. That we get the opportunity to kind of gradually go through our own experience and our own pace of healing, and you give people an opportunity to contribute in that way, however they feel comfortable, but also with a little bit of a giggle at a time that sometimes doesn't feel very funny. So I will just say I'm so grateful for that offering that you brought to the world. And I mean, years ago now, but I very much remember it.
That's amazing. I love that. I think the flower essences are so magical, and yeah, they really need to be known about a lot more. And I do continue, I'm making tinctures less, but the essences are still included in the mist. So you're still getting that energetic component from the essences, which help with the calm and the sleep and the energizing that come in all three of my mists.
Love it. Well, I'm just so grateful that you took time to hang out with me today. And for those of you listening, if you have any aspect of this that you're like, I want to learn more and know more, how should they find you? We'll put these on the show notes as well for those of you listening.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to reach me for whether post-baby rehab or the products is on Instagram. The Instagram handle is I am Natalie Garay for post-baby rehab, and the products are You Need Therapy on for the products. And I'm always happy to answer questions about post-baby rehab, any related issues. And if you need resources, I'm happy to help you select which course would be best for you, or other resources. If I can't serve you, then I'll find someone who will.
And I have purchased, I'm just a human testimonial today. I purchased one of the on-demand courses and got rave reviews as well. So for those of you that are like, is she talking to me? Is this worth, is this me? Am I able to do this? Do I need one-on-one? Why not give it a shot? Give something a shot and give it a try. See if it's supportive and helpful for you. Natalie's amazing. She will, answer your questions for sure. But these offerings, I think, take the scary away from the feeling of how to start. So I'm just relaying the thank you as well there.
Thank you.
Because it was such a great, got a phone call. I was like, I was just doing the pelvic floor work. I was like, okay, yeah, good.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you. Oh, and for those of you that, we will put this on the show notes, but happy, like therapy, but happy. That's how you spell the Instagram on that one. If you didn't catch it, feel free on the show notes and go follow Natalie. All this stuff's really great. And I will tell you, by looking all this stuff up, I wanted to be at that outdoor market. It looked beautiful. I feel like I need to hop on a plane and come over.
They've been so fun. Because, I'm in Central California, which means we have all the wineries and all the breweries here. And so to have a market out there with the weather that we have all the time, it's been so fun. Nice. And to connect with people, I love it.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you for joining. I am so happy to see you.
Thank you.
My face still does hurt a little bit. I need to do do they do cheek Pilates? I need a little bit of that. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So did you learn anything new today? Because I will tell you, every time I talk to Natalie, I learn something new. I wasn't kidding when I was saying the thing that we learn collectively is about Barbie. And we learn that there's nothing there and there's nothing to talk about. So if you are finding yourself hearing about some of this stuff for the first time, or really curious about things, or feeling like, oh my God, I should have known this, but I don't, I really encourage you to give yourself some compassion and some grace, because we're all learning. And there's a reason why this stuff isn't talked about. There's nothing wrong with you individually. You're not flawed for not knowing this stuff. We're not encouraged to take a deeper look and to take care of ourselves after something as traumatic as childbirth to our bodies. So I hope for those of you that this resonated with, you feel as though you belong here, because you do. And if you do have questions, Natalie wasn't just saying it. Feel free to reach out to her, or feel free to reach out to us. We want to hear your story. To go to nikkyinnocent.com/join the conversation, and we will be sure to hear your story. And if you want to get connected with Natalie, we can help you there too. All right, my friends, I will catch you on the next episode.